$100,000 per year. So the whole idea is no more will these big tech companies or other big companies train foreign workers.
One political issue of our time, the crisis of uncontrolled migration. It's uncontrolled. Your countries are being ruined. You have to end it now, Sid, I can tell you. I'm really good at this stuff. Your countries are going to hell.
Skilled Indians are welcome in Germany. Our migration policy works a bit like a German car. It's reliable, it's modern, it is predictable. It will go in a straight line with no zigzags.
Imagine this. You're working at a top US tech company. You've spent years studying. You've built a career here in the United States. And one Saturday morning, you wake up, you check your phone, and there's an urgent message from your employer. If you're abroad, get back immediately. If you're in the United States, cancel your travel plans. New government rules just dropped. Don't risk being locked out. This is exactly what happened this past weekend to thousands of professionals in America. And it all comes down to one thing: a massive shakeup in US immigration policy, specifically the H-1B visa program, overnight with no warning. Howard Lutnick, the US Commerce Secretary standing beside President Trump, announced on Friday that each H-1B visa would now cost $100,000 annually for employers. And this started a panic for the next couple of days until the policy was more clearly fleshed out. It's going to turn out to be one of those one more own goals by the Trump administration. Tech stocks in the United States, who are amongst the biggest users of the program, were down slightly on Monday. However, the Nifty IT index, a benchmark for India's tech sector, was down over 2.8%. Infosys, an Indian company and the seventh largest user of the H-1B program, was down 8% on Friday when the news came out. Roughly 30% of Indian companies' current US-based staff of these major IT Indian companies are said to be on these visas. And this is yet another irritant in that already strained US-India geopolitical relationship. The H-1B program is very important for Indians. And even in the past, when the United States government threatened it, under the first Trump administration, the Modi government persuaded Trump not to go through with his threats. Among other things, large remittances go back from the United States to India. This time round, in response to the announcement, India's Commerce Minister Piyush Goyal said, "They're afraid of our talent." The official statement from the India's Ministry of External Affairs said that skilled talent mobility and exchanges have contributed enormously to technology in development, innovation, economic growth, competitiveness, and wealth creation in the United States. The chief minister of the southern state of Telangana, Revant Reddy, which sends a high number of skilled IT workers to the US on these visas, urged the Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi to treat the issue on a war footing. And he warned that the suffering of Indian IT workers in America would be unimaginable. Many Indian men are also worried about their eligibility on the marriage market, which may also collapse. One ex-user shared his experience of setting up a dating website in the United States for Indian NRIs, and it found that the visa status was often a deal breaker. Recipients from India have come to dominate the H-1B system, especially in the past decade. In 2024, Indians accounted to around 71% of all the approved H-1Bs, while Chinese, the next largest, accounted for around 12%. All other countries are negligible in essence. Indians have a natural advantage since they speak English, and since the country's early association with the Soviet Union, there has been a strong emphasis on engineering since its independence. By comparison, United States schools are bringing out students who cannot even read or do maths that their parents could. More on that later. So in today's video, I want to break this down. What exactly happened? Why did the Trump administration do this? What's the history of the H-1B? And why was it introduced in the first place? And most importantly, why are experts warning that this could be a disaster in the making for the United States? Let's dive in deeper. On a side note, Donald Trump just made an extraordinary speech at the United Nations General Assembly in which he told Europeans that they're going to hell. And one of the reasons is their open-door immigration policy.
America has a secret weapon. That secret weapon is the H-1B. Without the H-1B, the scientific establishment of this country would collapse. Forget about Google. Forget about Silicon Valley. There would be no Silicon Valley without the H-1B.
Big companies like Google, Microsoft, Amazon, JP Morgan all rushed to figure out what this means for them when it was announced. Immigration lawyers' phones lit up non-stop. Families abroad scrambled to rebook flights. Some people literally cut vacations short just to make sure they weren't stranded. And inside the US, office managers scrambled to reassure their teams, but also sent blunt memos. Don't travel, don't risk it. The first 24-hour upending chaos stalled after the administration clarified that despite what the Commerce Secretary had said in front of all the world's TV cameras, the policy would only hit new applicants, and it would start next year in March 2026, when any new H-1B applications will be set and the cost will be $100,000. It also would not apply to the medical fields, which was later clarified. If you already have a H-1B or you're just renewing, you're safe, at least for now. But for new applicants, the message is brutal. Bringing in skilled workers from abroad just went from being expensive to almost impossible. Now, that's the short-term picture. Well, what about the bigger question? Why would the government do this? Trump has been consistent about one thing since his first campaign: America first. He's argued again and again, and his supporters claim and believe the same thing, that the H-1B visa scheme is being abused, that companies use them to bring in cheaper foreign workers, and sometimes even ask to lay off United States workers, and while doing so, ask them to train their replacements. Disney and Toys R Us are among the companies that are accused of having done this. Now, those stories obviously exist, but they're exceptions and not the rule. Still, politically, they're powerful. It's all part of that victimization feeling that we've seen across the world, whether it was the United Kingdom with Brexit or increasingly in the United States, when those results of globalizations promised did not benefit the bottom tiers of society. And they've taken out their frustration on those that they've classified as being outsiders and blamed them as being responsible for their situation. Now, while companies are prohibited from paying H-1B workers less than other workers with similar skills and qualifications, research done by, for example, the Economic Policy Institute shows that about 60% of the positions are paid well below the local median wage for the occupation in 2019. And then we have graduate employment. The United States is in trouble. Unlike many other countries, students take on huge debts, often over hundreds of thousands of dollars, to go to college, and they're now finding that there are no jobs waiting for them when they come out. The United States unemployment rate for the youth graduates, which are aged between 20 and 24, has averaged 8.1% over the last 3 months. Compare that to the 4.1% overall unemployment rate that the country has. It's the highest in 4 years. As the New York Times reported recently, more of the college educated are unemployed for longer. That share of the long-term unemployed workers with college degrees has steadily risen. And this is even before any impact, which we're going to see in the future, of the AI disruption, which is going to hit that educated future white-collar professional. So the administration thinks that this fee hike will not only deter abuse, it will prioritize high-value hires for the companies. And it will also generate billions of dollars in revenue for them. And you know, Trump loves his dollars. And it will send a strong message to his voters. We're protecting American jobs. We're looking out for you. In Lutnick's words,
the whole idea is no more will these big tech companies or other companies train foreign workers. They have to pay the government $100,000. Then they have to pay the employee. So it's just not economic. If you're going to train somebody, you're going to train one of the recent graduates from one of the great universities across our land.
but here's the catch. That story ignores the actual history of why the H-1B program was set up. Let's go back to 1990. The Cold War had just ended. The tech revolution was picking up speed. The United States was racing ahead in software, semiconductors, biotechnology, industries that were shaping the future. But there was a problem. America didn't have enough highly skilled workers to meet the demand. Congress saw the coming, and under President George W. Bush, they created the H-1B visa as part of the Immigration Act of 1990. It allowed U.S. companies to hire foreign workers for 3 years with the right of renewal for another 3 years. The goal was simple. If we don't have enough engineers, scientists, doctors, or researchers at home, let's bring in the best and the brightest from across the world. Let's make America the magnet for global talent. Let's make America great. And the original cap at the time was set around 65,000 visas per year, which was later expanded to around 85,000 when 20,000 more slots were added for those that had advanced degrees from the United States universities. And right from the start, demand just exploded. Every year since, applications have outstripped supply. In recent years, over 400,000 people have applied for those 85,000 slots. And I suppose I should at this point give you a disclaimer, which is I actually initially also came to the United States on a H-1B as well. But going back to those 400,000 people applying for the 85,000 slots, it's because things haven't gotten any better in the United States. There's still a massive shortage of STEM students at every level. A recent U.S. education report showed that among high school seniors in America, these are your 16 to 18-year-olds, only 22% performed at or above proficient in maths, and only 35% performed at a level or above that level of proficiency in reading. These are the lowest scores in 3 decades. Nearly 2/3 of the H-1B visas go to people working in computer-related occupations, and the majority of these are the big 7 companies. They use a large number of these H-1B visas. Amazon by far has the largest number, almost 3 times larger than the next company that uses them, which is a data consultancy services Indian company, Tata Services. So why is there so much demand? Because employers saw enormous value in the H-1B. They weren't just filling jobs, they were driving innovation. Think about it. Immigrants are behind a huge share of United States patents. They founded companies like Google, Tesla, Intel. Even today, more than half of U.S. unicorn startups have at least one immigrant founder. And many of those founders, they first came to the United States on a H-1B. Elon Musk is the classic example of someone on an H-1B. Now, that $100,000 fee on each visa will raise $8.5 billion for the US Treasury. Yet Elon Musk's one public company, Tesla, is worth around $1.5 trillion alone. And he also owns SpaceX, XAI, Neuralink, and he has his hand in many other pies as well, employing thousands of people, giving out millions of dollars of salaries. Imagine if you decide to lose one of these potential inventors because you decided to scrimp on the H-1B. What short-sightedness. In other words, the H-1B program has never been about cheap labor, even if a few cases exist about those. It's about fueling the American leadership in technology, healthcare, and research. And the United States has immensely benefited from guzzling in the best brains in the world into the country. Sure, once again, in a few instances, it was used to bring over cheaper labor, especially maybe in consulting or finance, where it was clear you could have employed an American graduate. But a foreign graduate was willing to work for much less. Now, these are still generally outlier cases that have started hitting the newspaper headlines, and as is the case with negative headlines, all the positive aspects of a policy get ignored. And that's why this new policy feels so destructive. A $100,000 fee doesn't just weed out bad actors. It makes the program inaccessible for almost anyone except big giant corporations. So Google or Amazon may complain, but they can afford it. However, a startup trying to hire a brilliant AI researcher, what are the chances they can afford someone? It creates an uneven playing field. It favors big tech while punishing the smaller players who actually drive the innovation where many of the breakthroughs are actually born, and they won't be able to shell out 6 figures per hire. Listen to what Bill Gates said, how the Indian engineers made a huge difference to Microsoft when it was still a much smaller company. Satya Nadella, the current CEO of Microsoft, also came on a H-1B to the United States.
He would go over to India and hire about 15 people who'd been students at IIT, and that would strengthen Microsoft's engineering capabilities. At the time, we only had a few hundred people, but even so, it was so hard to find amazing engineers.
And let's not forget the students. Every year, U.S. universities train tens of thousands of international students in STEM fields. You look at the maths department in any university, it will be full of mostly Chinese, and then you have the Indians, right? Engineering, same thing. These are people educated here. They're trained in American systems, and they're often eager to stay and contribute to the country. The H-1B has been their bridge into the workforce. But now, for most of them, that bridge just collapsed. So many will simply take their skills and go off to Canada, the UK, or Germany, countries that are actively rolling out that welcome mat and saying, please come over to us, we're open for you. And that's the irony. While the United States is shutting doors, the rest of the world is saying, come here, build here, innovate here. We're already seeing that the numbers of students coming to the United States from Asia plummet. Student arrivals to the US overall fell 19% this year to 313,000 in August. It's the lowest level since 2021. The decline was sharpest amongst Asian students who make up the most visas, which dropped around 24% year on year. Indians have seen the largest amount of drops of 43% in student visas issued, and a 24% decline in visas to Chinese students. And this isn't just because the United States is not issuing visas. It's also because those students are not applying for those visas. They don't want to go to a country where they are spending, in many cases, hundreds of thousands of dollars during their years that they spend there to be told they're not good enough, they're not white enough, or increasingly, not Christian enough. So let's ask the obvious. Will this policy really protect American workers? And the evidence says probably not. Decades of research shows that the H-1B workers don't displace Americans in large numbers. In fact, they often create more jobs. A single highly skilled engineer can enable entire teams of American workers to succeed. A biotech researcher might push a company towards a breakthrough, which leads to more hiring, more growth, more opportunity. And what happens if US companies can't bring in talent? They don't magically hire Americans who don't exist on the ground. They move the work abroad. They'll open their offices in Toronto or Bangalore. They'll expand their overseas operations. The jobs don't disappear. They just leave the United States. A number of tech companies have already campuses in India, which supplies the overwhelming majority of those H-1B applicants in the first place. They'll just outsource the jobs and keep them there. The existing H-1B visa caps have already led many American businesses to set up those R&D offices abroad in cities with high concentration of STEM workers. And the effect is to increase employment abroad and for those patents to be registered and the new technologies to be created outside the United States shores. So the real risk isn't protecting jobs, it's actually exporting those jobs. And let's not forget entrepreneurship. Many immigrant workers on H-1Bs eventually start their own companies, and those companies grow, they raise capital, they create thousands of American jobs. Shut down the H-1B pipeline and you're shutting down the future job creators. So let's step back. The H-1B visa was created in 1990 to solve a real problem. America needed more talent to stay competitive. And for decades, it worked. It fueled Silicon Valley. It filled critical shortages in healthcare and research. It helped to make the United States the world's innovation hub. And this new $100,000 fee, it doesn't protect jobs. It doesn't solve the skills gap. What it will do is to create chaos, stifle innovation, and push talent away from the United States. It's economic protectionism. And the way protectionism helps to stifle innovation and competitiveness in companies, it does the same to workers. The irony is painful that the very program which was designed to keep America competitive is now being turned into a barrier that could weaken its future. And unless there is a course correction, this could go down as one of the most damaging immigration decisions in modern US history. The US became a superpower because it welcomed the world's talent. This policy risks shutting that door, and history shows when America closes the doors, there's always someone else ready to open theirs. Thank you for watching me today. I'm Najma Minhas with UBS Deep Dive. Have a great day.